You ever notice how the more you give, the less they seem to see you? You pour yourself into someone, your time, your tenderness, your attention, and instead of being held closer, you somehow become easier to walk away from. It's cruel, isn't it? The way love seems to reward distance more than devotion. You tell yourself it's because you weren't enough, that if you'd been funnier or calmer or a little less needy, they would have stayed. But maybe it's not about being enough. Maybe it's about being rare. People don't treasure what they can easily touch. They crave what they can't fully hold. They want to chase the thing that feels just out of reach. Not because they're cruel, but because mystery makes the heart beat faster. It wakes up something ancient inside them, the hunger to discover, to win, to conquer. And maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to be the mystery. Maybe you've made yourself too easy to understand, too quick to explain, too eager to reassure. You wanted them to feel safe. You wanted to be chosen. But somewhere between your softness and your honesty, you handed them the whole map to you. And now there's nothing left to explore. Let me tell you something. No one tells the gentle ones. When you make yourself endlessly available, you stop being seen as precious. And when you stop being precious, you stop being desired. This isn't about manipulation. It's about remembrance. Remembering that you were never meant to beg for affection, that your worth isn't proven through suffering, that love should not require your self-erasure. You see, Machiavelli once said it's better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But what if that fear isn't cruelty or dominance? What if it's the quiet kind, the fear of losing you, the fear of never finding someone like you again? That's what happens when you learn to hold your power, when your silence becomes louder than your explanations, when you stop chasing and start allowing people to meet you halfway. Obsession isn't born from abundance. It's born from scarcity. The less of you they can easily consume, the more they start to ache for what they can't have. It's not about pretending or playing games. It's about knowing that your energy is sacred, that your presence is not a discount store. And maybe this is hard to hear, especially if you've spent your whole life believing love is about giving without limits. But the truth is, when everything is given freely, nothing is valued deeply. You don't have to become cold to be respected. You just have to stop bleeding for people who never learned how to hold gentleness. There's a quiet strength in restraint, a beauty in not revealing everything at once. That pause before you text back. That moment you choose to say less instead of more. That calmness when you walk away, instead of begging them to stay. That's the beginning of mystery. That's where obsession begins. Because the human heart is drawn to what it can't easily possess. To the one who seems to see everything, yet remains unseen. To the one who gives just enough to taste, but never enough to devour. That balance between closeness and distance, that's where power lives. So tonight, maybe stop chasing closure. Stop explaining yourself to those who never try to understand. You don't need to prove you're good. You need to remember you're rare. And if you're listening to this, maybe it's time you stop trying to make people stay and start making them wish they could come back. Not through cruelty, but through self-respect, through silence, through the kind of beauty that doesn't beg. You're not meant to be everyone's home. You're meant to be someone's unforgettable loss. And if these words touch you, if they remind you of the strength you've buried under years of softness, stay with me. There's more to uncover. More truth to whisper into the quiet corners of your heart. Follow this voice. Share it with someone who gives too much. Subscribe if you want to remember who you are again, the one they'll never quite forget. There was a time when you believed goodness would be enough, that if you were kind, patient, and forgiving, the world would respond in kind. You thought love would recognize love, that your tenderness would melt their coldness, that your understanding would fix their silence. But the truth is quieter and far more cruel. Not everyone values goodness. Some people only respect what they can't control. You kept trying to heal them with softness, thinking it would earn you safety. But softness to the wrong person is an open wound. They don't see your compassion, they see permission. Permission to take more, to give less, to assume you'll always stay. You became a sanctuary for the ones who didn't know how to rest without destroying what they touched. And it wasn't your fault. You were raised to believe that being good was enough, but goodness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You thought you were proving your love, but what you were really proving was your tolerance for pain. There comes a day when you realize you've been auditioning for love that was never yours to begin with. You replay every word, every act of devotion, every apology you whispered for things you didn't do, and it hits you like a cold wave. You were never loved for who you were, only for how convenient you made yourself to be. That's when the shift begins, when you stop asking, "Why don't they see me?" and start asking, "Why do I need them to?" That's when your healing begins to look like disobedience, when you start saying no, when you stop explaining, when you disappear quietly instead of waiting to be dismissed. And that's when they notice, because silence is not weakness. It's presence reclaimed. When you pull your energy back, people feel it like the oxygen leaving a room. They may not have respected your kindness, but they'll respect your absence. You see, people are fascinated by what they can't predict. When you stop responding the way you used to, when you stop chasing, stop proving, stop apologizing, they start to wonder what changed. That mystery unsettles them, because control dies where self-respect is born. This is where the art begins, the art of scarcity and mystery. It's not about pretending or playing games. It's about balance, about learning to give from strength, not fear. You don't have to reveal everything to be real. You don't have to bear every wound to be seen. You can speak softly and still command attention. You can love deeply and still remain untouchable. Think of yourself as a flame. When you burn too bright, people step back, not out of awe, but discomfort. When you dim completely, they forget you exist. But when your light flickers just enough, unpredictable, alive, they can't look away. That's the secret. Scarcity doesn't mean withholding love. It means giving it with discernment. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your soul, that your warmth is not a public service, that mystery is not manipulation, it's self-preservation. There's a reason why the most captivating people are not the loudest, but the calmest. They carry silence like an armor, an elegance that says, "I don't need to be chosen, I choose." They make you lean in. They leave questions unanswered, not to frustrate, but to remind you that curiosity is the beginning of desire. And maybe that's what you've forgotten, that you were meant to be intriguing, not transparent. You don't owe anyone the full story of your scars. You can let them wonder where your strength comes from. You can let them ache a little for your attention. You can let them feel the weight of your absence, because that's where longing grows. The ones who truly see you will not need constant access. They'll honor your silence. They'll respect your rhythm. They'll stay, not because you beg, but because your peace feels like a privilege. So tonight, when your heart aches to send that message, pause. Ask yourself, what are you really seeking? Validation? Closure? Or are you trying to remind someone who forgot your worth? Don't. Let your absence speak instead. Let them feel the space where your voice used to be. Let curiosity do the work you once tried to do with words. Because people don't obsess over what they understand. They obsess over what they almost understand, what feels within reach, but never fully captured. That's you. When you stop explaining yourself. That's you. When you finally learn that being mysterious doesn't mean being fake. It means being free. And freedom, it's the most magnetic thing in the world. It draws in the brave and intimidates the weak. When you walk with quiet self-trust, you stop chasing love and start attracting respect. Let them wonder. Let them reach. You are not a story they get to finish. There's something you learn after being broken enough times, a quiet kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or advice, but from pain that had nowhere to go. You start to see people differently. You stop believing in the shiny parts they show first. You learn to look for the shadows in their smiles, the pauses in their words. You stop falling for potential. You used to believe people meant what they said, that when they said, "I'll never hurt you," they meant it. But words are easy for those who don't carry the weight of promises. People will speak of love even when they have no idea how to hold it. And you believed them. Not because they were convincing, but because you were desperate for something to be true. There's no shame in that. Hope is human. But blind hope, that's how you end up staying too long in places that eat you alive. You see, kindness without clarity becomes self-deception. You start painting people in colors they've never earned, convincing yourself that red flags are sunsets. You call it loyalty. You call it love. But it's really fear, the fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear that maybe no one else will choose you. So you forgive what shouldn't be forgiven. You make excuses for behavior that drains your soul. You confuse your ability to endure with proof of love. But endurance isn't love. It's survival. And survival isn't living. You've been taught that love means sacrifice. That to keep someone, you must give more, bend more, lose more. But the truth, the ones who truly love you will never require you to betray yourself to prove it. You can't build connection on illusion. You can't keep chasing people's potential while ignoring their reality. You can't keep calling your wounds devotion. There's a moment, and maybe you've already felt it, when you finally stop trying to change people. You stop hoping they'll wake up one morning and finally understand what they lost. You stop needing to explain your worth. You just leave. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly the way dawn leaves the night behind. That's when they notice. Not when you were crying. Not when you were begging, but when you finally stopped caring, when your energy stopped orbiting around their approval. That's when your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back everything they failed to appreciate. And suddenly, they start reaching out. The same ones who ignored your messages now miss your presence. The ones who said you were too much now say you're distant. They don't miss you because they changed. They miss you because you did. Mystery begins the moment you stop explaining yourself. Scarcity begins when you stop being available to those who waste your time. Power begins when you choose yourself, even if it means being misunderstood. You can be gentle without being weak. You can be kind without being naive. You can forgive and still walk away. The lion and the fox, that's the balance. The heart that feels deeply and the mind that sees clearly. One without the other leads to ruin. If you only have the heart, you'll keep loving people who don't deserve it. If you only have the mind, you'll never let anyone close enough to love you at all. But when you hold both heart and mind, softness and strength, you become untouchable. You start to attract people who are drawn not to your pain, but to your peace. You stop chasing what drains you and start magnetizing what aligns with you. You realize that love is not something you earn. It's something you embody. And maybe that's what obsession really is. Not manipulation, not games, but the natural pull people feel toward authenticity that doesn't beg. When you're no longer trying to be understood, you become intriguing. When you stop performing kindness and start living truth, your energy becomes unforgettable. They'll sense it in your eyes, the calm, the distance, the quiet certainty that you no longer need them. And that's what draws them in. Because mystery isn't about hiding. It's about standing so firmly in your truth that not everyone can access you. You will lose people when you rise into this version of yourself. The ones who loved your compliance will call you cold. The ones who fed off your guilt will call you selfish. But don't shrink to fit their comfort. You've spent too long betraying your own voice. It's time to honor the silence that protects your peace. There is nothing cruel about pulling back from those who can't meet you halfway. You're not abandoning them, you're returning to yourself. And the self you're returning to is wiser now. Softer, still, but sharper too. You've learned to see without illusion, to love without losing yourself, to walk away without needing applause. The world will call that mystery. But it's really just freedom. The freedom of someone who finally knows their worth and doesn't explain it anymore. So tonight, remember this. Scarcity isn't a mask you wear. It's a boundary you build. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's the art of letting your silence speak. And power, real power, is not about domination. It's about dignity. You are no longer here to be chosen. You are here to choose. You've spent so much of your life trying to be the one who stays. Through silence, through distance, through the ache of being unseen. You thought that was strength, holding on when everything in you wanted to let go. But strength isn't staying where you're disrespected. Strength is leaving with grace, even when your heart is breaking. And maybe, somewhere deep down, you already knew that. But you were afraid. Afraid that if you let go, no one else would come. Afraid that if you stopped giving, the love would stop too. Because every time you withdrew, someone punished you for it. They told you that you were cold, that you'd changed, that you were not the same anymore. But of course you changed. You grew tired of bleeding just to keep the peace. That's what people don't understand about those who finally walk away. It's never impulsive. It's years of being too understanding, too forgiving, too patient, until one day you wake up and realize your softness has turned into silence, and your silence has turned into distance, and the distance feels like freedom. You see, scarcity and mystery aren't tricks. They're the natural result of healing. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you naturally become selective. You start to see that not everyone deserves front row access to your heart. And that realization, it changes your presence. You speak slower. You move calmer. You stop rushing to fill every silence. Because you finally understand that real connection doesn't need constant reassurance. People notice the shift. They can feel when your energy stops orbiting around them. You used to send long messages explaining your feelings in paragraphs. Now you say less, and every word lands heavier. You used to try to fix the distance. Now, you let the distance reveal the truth. That's the paradox. When you stop chasing, people start wondering. When you stop trying to be understood, they start trying to understand. When you stop proving your value, they begin to feel your absence like a storm that never ends. And that's not revenge. That's gravity. Your peace becomes a pull. Your silence becomes magnetic, because people crave what they can't easily have. They crave what feels like depth, like mystery, like something sacred that can't be demanded. And that's what you become when you finally stop giving your energy to the wrong places sacred. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about protecting your warmth. You've learned that love without self-respect isn't love, it's servitude. You've learned that peace isn't found in pleasing others. It's found in honoring your boundaries. You've learned that the right ones won't need you to shrink. Somewhere, Machiavelli once whispered, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But maybe the truth isn't fear at all. Maybe it's reverence, the kind that comes when someone looks at you and realizes they can't play with you anymore. They can't take advantage of your kindness anymore. They can't expect your forgiveness on demand, because now you know your worth. And that knowing is unshakable. And it's not arrogance. It's clarity. The clarity that comes when your heart stops begging for love and starts radiating it from within. When you realize that being gentle doesn't mean being powerless. When your compassion is no longer fueled by fear, but by discernment. That's the point when everything changes. You walk differently, you speak differently. You don't explain your peace anymore, you embody it. You stop performing goodness for approval, and instead, you live truth for yourself. And people feel that. They can't describe it, but they feel it, the quiet strength, the untouchable calm. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It's the kind of energy that makes someone question their own reflection after they lose you. They'll replay every moment, wondering where it went wrong, not realizing that it wasn't one moment, it was all the times they mistook your love for weakness. And now that you're gone, they realize how rare you were, because there's something unforgettable about someone who loved deeply and still chose themselves. And you'll start to see that obsession isn't something you have to chase. It's what happens naturally when you stop trying to be everything for everyone. When you give less, but mean more. When you stop shouting your worth and start living it in silence. The world doesn't need more open books. It needs more sacred texts. Not everyone deserves to read you cover to cover. Let some pages remain unturned. Let some stories remain yours alone. Because mystery is not about hiding, it's about holding back just enough so that the ones who want to know you must earn it. And when they do, when they show up with presence and patience, you'll know. Because love that's meant for you won't demand your silence. It will honor it. It won't require your disappearance. It will treasure your depth. It won't confuse access with intimacy. It will understand that your time, your energy, your attention are gifts. You are not here to chase admiration. You are here to embody grace, and grace doesn't beg. It simply shines. So when the night feels heavy and the urge to explain yourself returns, remember, silence is not emptiness. It's a message, and the ones meant for you will hear it. It's strange, isn't it, how silence can be louder than words ever were? You used to think that being quiet meant losing, that to stay silent was to surrender, to be misunderstood, to let someone else write your story. But now you see what silence really is. It's not weakness, it's choice. It's the moment you decide that peace matters more than proving a point. There's power in restraint, in the calm that unnerves those who once thrived on your reactions. You used to hand them pieces of your mind every time they hurt you. You'd send long messages explaining your pain, hoping they'd finally understand. But now you realize understanding was never the goal. They didn't want your clarity. They wanted your chaos. Because your chaos meant they still mattered. And when you stopped giving them that, when you finally chose distance over drama, they felt it. They felt the quiet, the void. It's unsettling, isn't it? To no longer be fed by someone's energy, to no longer live rent-free in someone's mind. That's when people start calling you mysterious. But it's not mystery, it's peace. It's what happens when your healing becomes louder than their need to control the narrative. You used to think love was about transparency, about showing everything, proving everything, revealing everything. But the truth is, not everything sacred needs to be seen. Some things grow stronger in the dark, like dignity, like boundaries, like self-worth. There's a certain grace in being misunderstood when you know your truth. You stop rushing to defend yourself. You stop begging people to see your heart, because you realize that the right ones, they'll feel it without explanation, and the wrong ones, they'll twist it no matter what you say. That's the moment you begin to understand scarcity on a soul level. It's not about pretending to be busy. It's about being deliberate with your presence. Your attention is a currency. Your time is gold. And when you stop spending it on people who deplete you, you become wealthy in peace. They notice. Even if they don't say it out loud, they feel it, the shift, the distance, the stillness. They start wondering who else has your attention now. They start replaying the way you used to show up, the way you used to care, the way you used to answer immediately. And in that wondering, the obsession begins. Not because you manipulated them, but because you reclaimed yourself, because you became something they can't predict anymore. And the human mind can't stop chasing what it can't define. That's the beauty of mystery. It invites pursuit. It whispers instead of screams. It leaves traces, a question, a memory, a scent of something unfinished. It makes them realize how easily they mistook your openness for permanence. But you're not permanent in anyone's story unless you choose to be. And you don't choose lightly anymore. You've learned the art of pacing your energy like breath. You inhale connection, exhale attachment. You give, but not all at once. You love, but not without discernment. You let people meet you where you are, instead of chasing them where they're going. And here's what happens when you do. You start to see who truly values you. The ones who cared only for your availability will fade. The ones who value your essence will stay, not because you beg, but because they recognize something sacred in your calm. It's strange how, when you finally stop needing people, they start needing you. They'll start searching your old messages. They'll remember your laughter, the softness in your eyes, the way your presence made the air feel lighter. They'll wonder where you went, not just physically, but emotionally. They'll feel the absence like a missing heartbeat. That's what happens when you stop pouring into others and start filling yourself. You become whole, and wholeness is magnetic because everyone is chasing it. Yet so few ever find it. You used to fear that pulling back would make you lose people. Now you see it differently. Pulling back revealed who was never really there. The ones who vanish when you stop performing for them are the ones who loved the performance, not the person. Let them go. Let them miss you. You don't owe them access to your peace just because they once knew your pain. Mystery doesn't mean closing your heart. It means keeping a sacred space within it that no one can enter without reverence. It's that quiet corner of your soul where not everyone is allowed to sit. And that's okay. You're not meant to be fully known by everyone, only deeply felt by the right few. So, when you feel the urge to overshare, to explain, to prove pause. You're not obligated to give them the map to your mind. Let them wonder a little. Let them work for the right to know you. That's not cruelty. That's emotional maturity, because what you give easily, they'll treat carelessly, and what they have to earn, they'll hold close. The truth is, mystery is just another word for boundaries spoken softly. And scarcity, it's simply self-worth in motion. So walk with grace. Let your silence be your power. Your calm be your weapon. Your distance be your clarity. And when they finally realize what they lost, don't rush to remind them. Let them feel it. Let them sit with it. Because that ache they feel, that's what it's like to finally see your worth too late. You don't have to punish them. Time will. And time always favors the one who learns self-respect first. You'll notice, over time, that people always return. Not all of them. But the ones who once fed on your light always come back when they realize it no longer belongs to them. They come dressed in remorse, wrapped in nostalgia, whispering words like, "I miss you," as if that's enough to undo the damage. And the old you, the one who loved too easily, would have opened the door without hesitation. But the new you pauses, because now you see things differently. You've learned that missing someone doesn't mean they deserve access to you again. It just means they finally felt the silence they once ignored. And maybe, just maybe, that silence taught them what your presence was worth. But you no longer need their understanding to heal. You don't crave their apology the way you used to, because closure stopped being something you wait for. It became something you give yourself. You start to realize that peace isn't in people. It's in boundaries. You don't find strength in confrontation. You find it in restraint. Not every wound needs to be explained. Not every goodbye needs to be loud. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away without bitterness, without revenge, just quiet certainty that you no longer belong there. This is the moment your power shifts. You're not seeking to be loved anymore. You're seeking to be respected. And that changes everything, because love without respect is dependency. But respect, that's what makes people stay. That's what turns fascination into obsession. Think about it. People don't obsess over what's easy to have. They obsess over what they can't quite figure out. The calm one who doesn't need validation. The one who doesn't over-explain. The one who smiles softly and says less, because they don't need to prove anything. That's what you become when you stop being reactive. You stop being predictable. You stop giving your emotions away like currency. And in that stillness, you become magnetic. Because in a world where everyone is loud, your quiet is unforgettable. But there's something deeper too. Something you don't realize until later. When you choose silence, it's not just about withholding from others. It's about listening to yourself. You begin to hear the parts of you that were drowned out by all that giving. The part that wanted rest. The part that longed to be chosen by you, not someone else. The part that was tired of earning love that should have been free. You realize that mystery isn't a mask you wear to protect your heart. It's the natural state of someone who has made peace with themselves. You no longer need to narrate your worth because you live it. You no longer explain your choices because you trust them. You no longer fill the silence because you've learned to find God in it. That's the quiet transformation they don't expect. Because when you rise like this, you stop chasing what's temporary. You stop trying to convince people to stay. You start attracting those who value the depth you carry. You'll feel it when someone truly sees you. Their eyes won't search for weakness. They'll recognize strength. Their love won't demand. It will respect. They won't fear your boundaries, they'll be drawn to them. Because people who have healed understand the sacredness of distance. You'll realize then that the love you were chasing was never about them. It was about trying to fill a void that was meant for your own acceptance. And when you finally give yourself, that when you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself, the game changes. Because no one can manipulate a person who no longer fears being alone. No one can control someone who no longer needs to be chosen. That's where true freedom lives, not in isolation, but in independence. And here's the thing. Freedom is intoxicating. It's the most mysterious energy of all. People sense it even before you speak. It's in the way you move through the world, slow, deliberate, grounded. You don't rush anymore. You don't chase closure. You don't prove loyalty to those who've already shown you who they are. You just are. And that unsettles them, because they can't figure out how to reach you now. They used to know exactly which words to say to keep you close. But now those words don't work anymore. You've grown immune to their chaos. You've replaced the need for attention with the desire for peace. And peace, once tasted, is addictive. So when they come back, and they will remember how it felt to be forgotten. Remember the nights you spent waiting for a message that never came. Remember how small you felt when you were trying to be everything for someone who gave you so little. Remember the moment you finally stopped begging, and then smile, because you no longer need them to validate your worth. You already know you are not the one who lost anything they are. Let them feel the emptiness they created. Let them wonder how someone so gentle learned to become untouchable. Let them chase the ghost of who you used to be, while you walk freely in who you've become. This is not revenge. This is restoration. This is what happens when kindness finds courage. And when you rise from that place, balanced between compassion and clarity, people won't just notice. They'll remember. They'll carry your absence like a lesson, and they'll never meet another like you again. There comes a night when you look in the mirror and realize the person staring back isn't the same one who used to beg to be loved. The eyes are calmer now, the smile quieter, but truer. There's something different in the way you stand. Not arrogance, just peace. The kind that doesn't need to be understood to be real. You used to define your worth by who stayed. Now you measure it by how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. There's a softness returning to you. Not the fragile kind, but the resilient kind. The softness of someone who's been burned and still chooses warmth. The softness of someone who can love without losing themselves. It's strange, this new chapter. You don't crave attention like you used to. You crave alignment. You don't want drama. You want quiet. You don't want promises. You want presence. And the ones who once found you predictable now find you unreadable. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become whole. There's a difference between distance and detachment. Distance is physical. Detachment is spiritual. You may still care, but you no longer cling. You may still feel, but you no longer drown. That's what mystery looks like in its purest form. A heart that loves deeply, but holds lightly. Machiavelli said fortune favors the bold. And maybe that's what healing really is, a kind of boldness. It takes courage to let go. It takes courage to stop chasing love and start embodying it. It takes courage to be alone long enough to rebuild your own trust. Most people never get there. They run from silence into someone else's noise. They mistake distraction for healing. But you've learned to sit in the quiet and let it teach you. You've learned that solitude isn't punishment. It's preparation. You no longer move from emptiness. You move from fullness, from choice. That's why your energy feels different now. It's not desperate. It's deliberate. You no longer reach out from fear. You reach out from overflow. And people feel that even if they can't explain it, they'll call you mysterious, magnetic, untouchable. But the truth is simpler. You finally become authentic. And authenticity has its own gravity. It doesn't chase. It attracts. It doesn't beg. It invites. You used to think power meant control, being able to make people stay, to make them see. But now you understand that real power is serenity. It's the ability to let life unfold without losing your center. It's knowing that whatever leaves was never meant to stay. And whatever stays doesn't need to be forced. This is what it means to be both lion and fox. The lion doesn't roar to be feared, it simply is. Its presence alone commands respect. The fox doesn't deceive, it observes. It moves with quiet intelligence, acting only when necessary. You now carry both. You love like the lion fiercely, proudly. You think like the fox wisely, silently. You don't need to prove your worth. Your presence proves it for you. And still, you remain human. You still feel the ache sometimes, when the night is long and your heart remembers the warmth of what once was. But instead of running back, you breathe. You hold the ache gently, like something sacred, because even pain, when met with awareness, becomes a teacher. You start to see how everything was leading you here. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every goodbye. Each one stripped away what wasn't real until only truth remained. And truth, once seen, can't be unseen. You realize that people were never the source of your power. They only revealed how much of it you had forgotten. Every person who overlooked you taught you to see yourself. Every person who walked away taught you how to stand alone. Every person who lied taught you how to live in truth. That's the gift hidden inside the pain clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom, because once you see clearly, you stop romanticizing confusion. You stop calling it chemistry when it's just chaos. You stop calling it loyalty when it's just fear of abandonment. You stop calling it love when it's really self-erasure. That's when your energy shifts entirely. You no longer attract people who feed on your doubt. You attract people who are drawn to your peace. You attract the ones who don't need to conquer you. They just want to stand beside you. And when they love you, it won't feel like obsession or fear. It will feel like recognition, like two souls bowing to the same truth. And those who don't understand your peace, let them call it mystery. Let them wonder why they can't quite get close enough. Let them feel the ache of distance and the pull of something they can't define. Because that's what happens when someone becomes whole. Wholeness can't be possessed. It can only be honored. You are no longer the one who begs to be seen. You are the one who teaches others how to look. You are the one who reminds them that depth doesn't need to shout. That silence can be louder than confession. That strength can live inside softness. That power can exist without cruelty. And this quiet balance is what makes people obsess. Because they can't buy it, can't fake it, can't control it. It's the kind of power that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it. You are both the lesson and the loss. You are what they can't forget. And not because you were perfect, but because you were real. It happens slowly at first, this becoming. One morning, you wake up and realize you no longer check your phone first thing. You no longer scroll through messages that never came. You no longer measure your worth in someone else's silence. You pour yourself a cup of coffee, stand in the quiet, and feel something you haven't felt in a long time: contentment. Not excitement, not distraction, just quiet peace. You start to notice beauty again. The way light moves through the curtains, the sound of rain against the window. You start to breathe deeper, to listen longer, to walk slower. The world hasn't changed, you have. For the first time, you're not trying to be chosen. You're choosing who gets your time, who earns your trust, who deserves your softness. And that small, sacred act of choosing changes everything. People sense it. Your energy no longer reaches for them. It rests. It doesn't ask. It allows. You've become still. And that stillness unsettles them because they can't pull you back into the noise. You used to think that being desired was the goal, that if people wanted you, it meant you were worthy. But now you see that being desired is nothing compared to being respected. Desire fades when curiosity dies, but respect that lingers. That turns into obsession, into reverence, into memory. And the secret to respect is not perfection. It's integrity, the quiet consistency of someone who knows who they are and doesn't need validation to prove it. You've stopped trying to convince anyone of your value. You simply live it. You walk differently now, not faster, not louder, just steadier. And that steadiness is magnetic, because here's the truth. People crave what grounds them. They're drawn to those who move with calm certainty. And you, after everything, have become that calm. You no longer chase highs. You protect peace. You no longer beg to be seen. You see yourself, and that's when they come back again. Not just the ones who hurt you, but the ones who once took you for granted. They come with soft words, gentle tones, promises to do better. They sense your distance and call it walls. But you know better. They're not walls. They're standards. They say you've changed, and you have. You've stopped giving love as an offering and started giving it as a choice. You've stopped chasing potential and started honoring presence. You've stopped trying to be needed and started being whole. They'll miss you in ways they don't understand. They'll replay the way your laugh filled the silence, how your eyes carried both warmth and warning, how your love felt safe yet unreachable. They'll remember the way your calm felt like home and realize too late they mistook it for boredom. And you'll smile not out of cruelty, but out of peace, because you finally understand that what they called mystery was really self-respect, that what they called scarcity was really discernment, that what they called coldness was simply boundaries. Machiavelli said fortune favors the bold, and you've become exactly that: bold in your silence, bold in your truth, bold in your ability to walk away without bitterness. Because real boldness isn't loud, It's steady. It's looking at the door and knowing you can leave anytime, and still choosing to stay only where your soul is safe. This kind of power doesn't scream. It hums. It lives in your posture, your tone, your pause. It's the unspoken sentence that lingers in the air when you say less. It's the confidence that no longer seeks attention, but commands it effortlessly. And that's the paradox. When you no longer need anyone to obsess over you, that's when they do. Because obsession is born from lack, and you no longer lack yourself. You've become whole, and wholeness makes people curious. They'll want to know how you did it, how you became both soft and strong, open and guarded, loving and untouchable. You'll tell them the truth if they're ready to hear it. You stopped confusing love with rescue. You stopped mistaking approval for connection. You stopped bleeding to prove your heart. You started letting go of expectations, of illusions, of everything that hurt but felt familiar. And then, quietly, you started loving yourself like you once loved them, patiently, tenderly, without condition. You began to treat your heart like something worth protecting, not something to be traded for crumbs of affection. Now, your love is rarer, not because you've built walls, but because you've learned to be sacred. You don't give easily, because you finally understand what it costs. And those who want to know you, truly know you, will meet you in that sacred space, without games, without demand. They'll honor the mystery. Instead of trying to break it, they'll handle your quiet like something holy. That's the truth about being unforgettable. It's not about looks or charm or the perfect words. It's about presence, depth, integrity. It's about being so rooted in your truth that people feel safer near you, even when they can't have you. And that's why they'll never forget you. Not because you played them, not because you made them chase, but because you were real, and real is rare. And in a world addicted to illusions, rarity becomes obsession. Maybe this was never about learning how to make people obsess over you. Maybe it was about remembering how to stop obsessing over them. Because once you return to yourself, the world changes shape. The same streets look different. The same faces feel distant. And you, the one who once ached for love like oxygen, now breathe just fine on your own. You begin to realize that all the power you were chasing was never out there. It was always within you, buried under the noise of trying to be enough. Every apology you gave when you weren't wrong, every time you stayed to prove your worth, every tear shed in silence, they were small deaths of self. But now, you've resurrected, and your rebirth is quiet, but unstoppable. The truth about mystery and scarcity is simple. It's not about playing games. It's about living in such alignment with your truth that not everyone gets to touch it. It's about walking through the world with the kind of grace that says, I know what I bring, and I don't need to explain it. It's about being so grounded in who you are that others can feel it before you even speak. You no longer try to be good by someone else's definition. You've learned that goodness without wisdom turns into martyrdom. You've learned that love without self-respect becomes a wound. And you've learned that the only kind of loyalty worth keeping is the one you offer yourself first. So yes, people will be drawn to you now not because you're trying, but because you've stopped. They'll be intrigued by your calm, unsettled by your silence, magnetized by your balance. They'll want to know you, to possess what you carry, but they can't. Not entirely, because what you carry now is peace. And peace cannot be possessed. You'll still love, but differently. From fullness, not from emptiness. You'll still give, but wisely. From choice, not from fear. You'll still hope, but gently. From clarity, not illusion. You've learned that the most powerful kind of presence is the one that doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply is unbothered, unhurried, unapologetically whole. And maybe one day, someone will ask you what changed, why you seem lighter, quieter, untouchable. You'll smile and say, I stopped trying to be loved and started trying to be real. That's how people become obsessed, not through performance, but through truth. Not by chasing, but by standing still. Not by making noise, but by radiating silence that feels like peace. So if you're listening to this, if some part of you still aches, still hopes, still waits, let this be your reminder. You don't need to chase anyone to be unforgettable. You just need to become who you were, always meant to be calm, certain, whole. Let them wonder where you went. Let them ache for your presence. Let them whisper your name when the room grows quiet. You, the one who once gave too much, have become the lesson they'll never forget. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. And if this truth found you tonight, let it stay. If it reminded you of your strength, share it with someone who's forgotten theirs. If it gave you peace, let others feel it too. Subscribe, follow, share, not for me, but for the part of you that's finally waking up. The part that knows now you were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to be unforgettable.